It's Wellness Wednesday. It's Wellness Wednesday. And I'm going to talk about something that came up in a session with a client that I named Conversational Good Pain. And I compared it to when you're working out and, you know, the whole feeling the burn and you're kind of sore the next day. There's a certain point of it where it's like, all right, that means my muscles are working. That means the exercise is working. After a certain point, it's like, oh God, right? And I mean, yeah, doing the Invisalign. The hurt means it's working, but it can become unbearable. The first week, it was. It's not so bad this time around so far. Knock wood. Ask me tomorrow. A new liner went in. Talked about it yesterday, but I think I did. God. But there is kind of an area where discomfort in a conversation is good for you. If it becomes too painful, no, that's traumatizing. That's no good. But the expectation that you're completely comfortable in a conversation or something is wrong, that holds back your growth. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Or like and subscribe to this channel for a no money way of supporting me. There is no It's Not Therapy this week because I was at the dentist. So just heads up there. It'll be a rerun on radio. So conversational good pain is when your assumptions are challenged, is when somebody's pointed out that you may have made a mistake. And sometimes there is no space to be gentle about it. The example I always go back to, and this is an extreme, right? But the example I go back to is when, you know, we were hanging lights for a set and I saw something about to come down on someone. And I'm like, get out of the fucking way. And afterwards they complained I yelled at them. You know, that wasn't me yelling because I was angry. That was me seeing the train coming and trying to prevent a very serious injury. And, you know, there's an example of someone who couldn't have conversational good pain. Sometimes it hurts, but it's growth. And it shouldn't be unbearable. It shouldn't be. But unfortunately, we've instilled this idea that everything is just supposed to be gradual and easy. And, you know, in real life, there are difficulty spikes. And you got to dope through it. And sometimes it's really hard. Setbacks can be some of the best teachers. And that doesn't mean they don't hurt to think about, but they are very good teachers. Now, what separates conversational good pain from conversational bad pain? Well, you know, if your boundaries are respected, you know, it's, look, I want to hear you, just that particular phrase sets me off. Can you not use it? Can you say this instead? If someone honors that, great, right? Bad is, no, it's how I want to say it, you know? Example of conversational good pain is someone telling you, well, you know, you may have misheard what they said, right? Which can be embarrassing. That's different than, I didn't say that, and just stopping the conversation dead. You know, the person said something that you reacted to. You just did not react to nothing. And this is where people get very, very reactive with me and go, sometimes I have, because they've dealt with somebody who was one of those rare cases that they actually were hearing and seeing things that weren't there. And it was a very scary instance of reality shifting under their feet. And When you're dealing with somebody with a personality disorder, that can happen. That's why it's a disorder, right? Most of the time, that's not what's going on. But if you even get one person where it was, the idea that you have to just submit to their version of events is terrifying. Now, that's not what I'm suggesting, because the flip side of that is somebody accuses you of saying something that you absolutely did not say. It's not the way you talk. You don't know what they heard, but it wasn't that. Happens to me all the fucking time. And, that's pretty much what I say, that, look, I believe you reacted to something, but I didn't actually say that. What I recall is this other thing. And, they may go, yeah, that. It's like, well, those aren't the same thing. Do you see? No. And then we're back to the same problem, right? It's just somebody just, boom, just cutting the track, blowing up the bridge in the conversation. The train just goes right off and crash wreck. That's not conversational good pain. Conversational good pain is working those emotional muscles so you get stronger. Knowing that sometimes you have to hear things that are really difficult so that people feel like they can come to you when things are difficult. And one of the things I have never been able to stand is well-meaning, and it's usually male coworkers, keeping shit from me because they'll think I'll have a bad reaction. And then I have a bad reaction to them keeping shit from me. And like, see, I knew you'd have a bad reaction. I mean, that's just fucking bullshit. It's completely disrespectful. And, I end up finding out a lot of the time that they don't want to hear it. They're treating me the way they want to be treated, but they don't think that they can say that. And so they harbor a bit of a resentment against women and being protected. And I never asked for that. In fact, I asked for the opposite. You're not treating me like a full-blown colleague. And, at this point, it's funny because I hear women are protected, and then I know what my experience is, and it's waves and waves and waves and waves of, let's face it, psychological abuse. And I come out and talk about it, and I say, this is why it's wrong, with a pretty level head. And I'll say it's wrong for anybody, not just me. I don't engage in those sort of tactics because I don't think it's useful. We're looking for the best ideas, not the thickest skin. And people still just go, oh, you're unhinged. Because it's easy to call a woman crazy and have it stick. Woman angry, must be crazy, right? Men angry, he's strong. And that's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And it's not helping anybody. Because let's face it, man angry, he's strong. Only certain men, right? Only certain men. Not all men. You gotta be way up in that hierarchy to be allowed to be angry. And that is a serious problem, because it means that the vast majority of people end up feeling like, in the grand scheme of things, they don't count. And then, the influencers influence us to fight each other instead of working with each other to get better. Feminism says it's not your fault, it's the men. The manosphere says it's not your fault, it's those fucking bitches. And, it's all conversational bad pain. There's no conversational good pain. Because conversational good pain means hearing that your perspective is not wrong. It's based on your observations, which may have been accurate, but it's not complete. And I love having a more complete understanding of things. Just last week, the whole idea that people go after men's ability to perform, shall we say, in conversations that have nothing to do with that. And I was able to go, you know what? That's wrong too. That took nothing from me. Like, was it a correction? Sure, but it was a positive one, right? It was creating a more filled out, fleshed out picture of the various issues. That's great. You know? I mean, I wouldn't even say that was painful at all. Other things, other corrections people are not as cool about, those do sting. But sometimes it's good to be reminded that things are still that bad. And, you know, the difficult conversations I have with people one-on-one are usually of the good pain variety. There are certain things that people say and they really hurt. I don't show it, but I have to walk it off because in some cases it's my job. But, you know, sometimes they'll realize themselves that they hit too hard. And those are the ones I really, really appreciate. Because they did think it through. It happens with people. But the garbage that people spew. And I know there are a lot of very talented people who want to share online, but they are petrified of the mob. And that's not just not great for them. That's not great for everybody. Because again, we want to cultivate the best ideas, not the thickest skins. And they are not the same. Somebody who has a big picture mentality does tend to get easily hurt by things because they don't, you know, they're considerate enough and thoughtful enough to recognize things hurt instead of, you know, morons go, I don't care. I mean, I am pretty sure that I probably have gotten stupider just, you know, Minsk style. One too many hits to the proverbial head. Some not proverbial. And, you know, there's an example where because, you know I have sustained injuries, when people start going on about women being protected or women not knowing what it's like to suffer or, you know, to not, women are allowed to be weak. I'm like, we are not on the same planet. And let's face it, they're talking about, you know, fabulously attractive, upper middle class, white coated women. That's what they're talking about. And when they're excluding me from that, well, I'm pretty white, so I must just be fucking ugly. Right? And some people, no, I don't mean that. Well, didn't ya? Because let's face it, there's shelters full of women who aren't protected. And that's the point where they start shutting down. Right? And they start going, yeah, but I don't, but there is this bad code at the core there. They keep going back to because the bad pain is overriding the good pain that would lead to a change in perspective. And it's not just men. I used to run in radical feminist circles, and it is exactly the fucking same. Women want to blame men for all their goddamn problems. They don't, they won't blame themselves for anything because they can't take any responsibility because responsibility turns to shame almost immediately. And that's a hard thing to come out of as somebody who had to do it. And that doesn't mean I never feel shame now. You know, do I sit here going, gee, I wish I was attractive enough to be allowed to have an opinion? I really do. I know that's wrong, but there's a part of me that just goes, yeah, I wish I was hot enough for any of you to care what I actually think. The logical part of me goes, they still wouldn't care. Then you'd be a dumb slut instead of dumb and ugly and old the way you were when you were in your 20s and getting called a slut. And, you know, but it works, right? The abuse works. That's bad pain. And I don't think there is a way to benefit from the good pain when the bad pain is when you're still being force fed it. The bad pain is always going to win because it's usually unbearable, other than like small amounts, right? And it's interesting because I was at a thing on the weekend where there were a bunch of women with a lot of tattoos. And they were talking about how it hurts every time and they cry and like yell every single time, but they keep getting it because of the results. And I mean, there's an example of they consider that good pain, right? I can't tattoo, so there's no point. My skin compartmentalizes. But, you know, I guess it's like bikini waxes. It's just you like the results, so you tolerate it. And if there's no social good pain that you're willing to tolerate for the results, you're never going to grow. You're never going to mature. You're never going to improve. And it's often very hard to know the good pain from the bad pain. So my rule of thumb is if it's good pain, you know, if you're telling your trainer, this really hurts, your personal trainer is going to say, okay, stop, take a break. You know, he may push you for one more rep, 2 more reps, but it's like, okay, because you don't want to risk injury. Conversational good pain is the same. They may push you out of your comfort zone. Cool. That's what training is for. But if it is agonizing, if you feel like you're dying inside and you're asking them to stop and they don't, that is not in your best interests. And if you're saying, well, that's most online communities, yeah, it is. That's the scope of the problem. And, you know, it's so bad that, you know, I started a Discord just to go, hey, we're not going to be like that. And people just, we hear all the time, you know that most Discords aren't like this. It's like, yeah, that's the point. That's the point. Like, and they're angry at us that we're not like all those other toxic, very top-down communities. And that's when you realize those are people that have been exposed to a lot of social bad pain and told it's good pain. And it is not. Anything that makes you believe that the world is a god-awful shitty place is bad pain. And I've been reminded of that lately because I've had an uptick in feeling like liminal anxiety going into social events, especially with people I don't know. And it's because of the beating I've taken on the internet. It's, you know, cause and effect. And I'll heal from it again, and then they'll do it again, and I'll have to heal from it again. And does it take something from me every single time it happens? Yes, it does. I'm sacrificing nuance and vulnerability for just being willing to function because social media's shit. You know, but heaven forbid you use a piece of music on TikTok for 3 seconds. It'll fuck up the audio in your entire video. I want better. And I'm continuing to work towards better. And I want to create those spaces for people who haven't lost as many IQ points to this shit as me. Because the tougher you are, the dumber you are. Just because you have to blot out information. And I know that I have different modes. When I'm in listening mode, when I'm in peer counselor mode, when I'm in, artistic coach mode, it's different. My feelings are muted, And when I'm out of that, and all of a sudden people want me to go into that again on my off time, it's like grinding the gears, right? Because it's like, no, this is my off time. This is when I get to be fully human, not resilience personified, distress tolerance personified, right? And it's a constant challenge. Now, it's left me very grateful for the people who understand and care, right? That's good pain. And I try to focus on that and try to use the good pain to get stronger and use the good pain to heal from the bad pain, because most conversations that kind of go to shit don't recover. So I'm intensely grateful for the ones that do. And that is a mindset thing, where the counterbalance to that is you don't take the abuse. You may have to weather it, but you don't have to take it, which means you don't have to accept that you did something wrong. You don't have to accept this is the way of the world. You can go, no, this isn't right. And, you can only impact your little corner of the world. All of us can. Some of the corners are bigger than others, but everybody can only really make lasting change in their corner. But that is doable, right? So I don't focus on the people who can't be persuaded. I focus on the people that are doing better, who are worth the good pain. Because somebody who's worth the good pain cares that you're feeling bad pain. That's a good test as well. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK, or like and subscribe to this channel. Greatly appreciate. Thanks for watching and be well.